as you mentioned ownership, including ownership, what other qualities do you feel are required to do justice as a consultant? Like what responsibilities should someone have if they are being a consultant to someone?
When you're just working in house as a designer, you have to have hard skills, and I think that's like the major that's the major responsibility that you have. You need to have the hard skills for the job. But when you're working as a freelancer or as a consultant, you also have to be you're also running a business, right? So there are a lot of other skills that you need to have, which is how you communicate, taking a look at your project pipeline, or managing your finances. So all of that things are also going to be very important. So these are the skills that you need to have. And also one of the reason why I kept on freelancing was I thought of it as a gift that kept on giving, because when I was working full time in house, it was mostly about getting the job done.
Right.
But working as a consultant, or as a freelancer, it was more about understanding the business of creativity. So not just the creative work that you do, but also what is the business impact of it. And yeah, so I would say all of the skills which are not really taught to you in say in your design education or in a design school, but which you only learn when you do the business.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Also, Darshan, like you mentioned that in your previous interviews, you mentioned that you should not, as a beginner, you should not consider freelancing full time, because you need to have that level of expertise, that level of experience
Yeah.
of understanding the product, the design, the clients. So ideally, if someone eventually wants to pursue full-time freelancing or consultation at certain point of their time of their career, when is the ideal point? When do you think they should do that?
It can be different for a lot of people. Depends upon the kind of goals that you have. But I can tell you, I can share my story. So I mean, the reason why I had that confidence to take that step and transition into full-time freelance was because I knew that I had enough projects in the pipeline, and I knew that I would have a lot of work coming my way. And the other thing is that you also need to have some savings, so that would at least create a few months of runway for you. Now, I mean, freelancing can be tricky, right? It's not it doesn't come with a guarantee that everything is going to go well. So if you start with something and if things don't go your way, you still have to pay the bills, right? So if you have some savings from your full-time job, and which would at least have the runway for you for 3 or 4 months, and that would put you in a comfortable position. And also, I say that it's also important that you start it the right way, because if you get burned out in the beginning, then you might end up just hating it, and then
Right.
you might not want to go back to it. So if you have the savings, this would just allow you to take more risk, or you could, even work on some things which would get you more projects. So for example, you could work on particular case studies. So it's always recommended to put out the kind of work that you want to work more on. So if you're going to put out just the landing pages, your work is just going to be about the landing pages, then you would only be recognized for that, and people would reach out to you if they want a similar work. And say that's not bad, but the question is whether you want that. And working as a consultant, for me, it was more about working on the end-to-end product design. So I had to make sure that I put out case studies which would cover the end-to-end aspect of it, and which would ultimately get me more of that work. But
Right.
in order to create that, you also need to spend a lot of time on that, right? You need to create those case studies, you need to put in the work, and then you need to share on social platforms or your website. You need to document your work. You could also be working on side projects, which is also going to get you a lot of recognition. So I think a lot of my clients actually came from they looked at Product Disrupt, and they looked at my blog. So it was a compounding effect of all of those things. It's not that they would just see at one thing and immediately reach out to you. So they would see some of my finance related projects on my Behance. From there, they would also find out about Product Disrupt. They would also see who I am as a person, what are the kind of things that I'm passionate about, what I'm writing about, and then they would make the decision to finally reach out. So and you have to put in a lot of time to do that, right? So I would say, if you have savings, and if you know that there's enough work coming your way, and if you know that you're happy with the kind of work that you're getting, I think then that's the right time that you could just take the leap of faith and you could transition full time.
That's really good advice, Darshan, for all the beginners who are in this chat, who might consider freelancing after a point, or working remotely or working as a consultant full time. I feel this is a really pragmatic advice that someone could get.